Well, not much is really happening on the border. It's surprisingly, the worst fears did not materialize, and it's quite peaceful, actually, surprisingly. One of the interesting things about this Taliban takeover is that it did not generate the kind of refugees or displacement of people that was expected. And again, this is surprising considering the images we see from the Kabul airport. So on the one hand, you have the images from Kabul airport, but on the other hand, we've had very little reports of very few refugees actually moving in either into Uzbekistan or into Iran. Not much really into Pakistan so far, although there are contingency plans in place. So no refugee crisis for now on the border.
How do you explain that? Is that because the border is closed? Is that a policy by the Pakistani government and other bordering nations, or is your analysis different? Is it just because people prefer to stay at the moment within Afghanistan and wait and see what the day brings?
Yes, I think. I'm sorry, there was some issue with the connection here. So yeah, you're right. Absolutely, this is the story. The majority of Afghans have chosen to stay indoors, to not venture out of their towns and cities that have been taken over by the Taliban. It's a wait and see, definitely. And most of the people, even my own contacts, my friends, journalists that I've spoken to, mostly they've chosen to stay indoors and not take the risk right now to go to border areas. So there is panic, there's fear, there's no question about this, but there's also anticipation and a wait and see with the signals that the Taliban are trying to give now about changes in their attitude to the way they would treat minorities and the media, women, and so forth. So there is a wait and see. So one of the biggest stories, really, of this crisis in Afghanistan right now is that we don't have refugees at the border, at any of the borders that Afghanistan has with its neighbors. Certainly not the largest border that Afghanistan has with Pakistan. Very, very surprising, I might say. It's also very surprising to the Pakistani officials that I've spoken to. There are contingency plans. They were expecting really a huge number of refugees, and there were plans for 10 cities and so forth. And none of that really happened so far. And this is the third or the fourth day since the takeover of Kabul. So very interesting. It's an important story, not getting as much media attention, definitely, because of the situation inside Kabul, but it is a big story. No refugees, no massive displacement of people so far.
And do you believe the Taliban?
No, there's a lot of mixed feelings even here in Islamabad. This is the closest capital to Kabul. We are watching. There are many sympathizers in Pakistan, people who are really happy to see the Taliban next door. But at the same time, within the government, within the Pakistani civil society, there's a lot of concern. Why? Because very simply, a takeover by a militant organization right next door really inspires other militants. It's as simple as that. And people are really concerned that the gains Pakistan made over the past few years, fighting extremism, fighting these militant groups, all of this might be at jeopardy right now because of this. So everybody's really hoping that the Taliban, it's a fact now that they're in Kabul, that they would sort of temper their policies and not end up becoming a magnet for extremism, for militant groups, not just here on the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, but also across the region. And I think that is the key concern right now, even across the Gulf, the Middle East, for Afghanistan, not to become a magnet, an inspiration again for militant groups, for Al-Qaeda, for ISIS. It's a wait and see. Honestly, it's a wait and see. Some encouraging statements from the Taliban, but it really comes down to, can you believe that? Do you have other evidence that would support changes, mixed reports from other Afghan cities, why the Taliban are trying to improve the way they deal with the people, with the locals in Kabul, and certainly that's encouraging. But you have some mixed reports really from other Afghan cities. And we've heard UN officials, we've heard local journalists convey these mixed reports. Okay. So it's a wait and see. Really, it's too early to it's premature to pass a judgment. But that's the question: do you believe the Taliban or not?
It will be a huge surprise and perhaps unprecedented if an organization like the Taliban suddenly change its ways. Although that's what they are declaring. Last, I do want to ask you about the G7 summit that was announced last night by Biden and Boris Johnson. What would you like to see, or what would Pakistan, or should we like to see come out of there?
Right. Well, at this stage, I really do not have much confidence in anything that the international community really can do. With these huge failures. I mean, we should not have been at this point. Afghanistan was really very important experiment, not just for the Afghan people who really deserve better, but also for neighboring countries like Pakistan, like Iran. People are watching the experiment, the nation-building process in Afghanistan. For that to fail really is a bad omen for civil society, for people who would like to see less role for militant groups, for extremist groups in the region, not more. So all of a sudden you have a militant group succeeding against all odds, against everything that the international community has done to see the experiment of democracy, of nation building, of civil society succeed in Afghanistan. It's really not a good day for nation state, for civil society, for liberal values, for values of tolerance. So it's a big question mark, really. What kind of lesson extremist groups would draw really from this across the Middle East? What can the international community really do? What can G7 really do that they did not over the past couple of decades? It's unfortunate that the international community really failed at this.